Reading vlog time! You all, I am so excited to be back with a reading vlog. I did not know how much I was going to miss reading vlogs until I went an entire month without doing them. Can you believe that we missed a whole month? I certainly cannot, but I am so happy to be here. Oh my gosh, filming reading vlogs makes such a big difference to me because I get to discuss books with you that I've read in that past week. And because I only read them in the past week, they're still very vividly stuck in my mind. But when I don't do that and I do my monthly wraps, it's like, oh yeah, here's a book that I read like 31 days ago and let's see what I can recall. I also love that I get to have more time to go into discussing these books with you all. So are you ready? I am. Let's jump right in. This is going to be a reading vlog that covers the 1st to the 9th of August 2022, and let's go! Before I begin, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who has been supporting me this month. Your support has just been absolutely incredible. Thank you. I have felt it on every level that I can. You guys are so amazing. Thank you very, very much. For everyone wanting to know where I've been hanging out lately, I've been hanging out primarily over on my Discord. If you'd like to join me over there, link to that is in the description. Not trying to advertise, just trying to tell you that's where I've been. And you all have been giving me so many laughs and I've had so much fun with you all. So thank you, my beautiful Discorders. You are the light of my life and I appreciate it so much. But let's talk about the reason that you all are here, which is to see what I've been reading in the first week of August. Now, this is covering the 1st to the 9th, so it is over a week, but that's okay, because I have 3 books to discuss with you. The first book that I picked up for the first week of August 2022 was this book, The Inheritance Games, by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Yes, woohoo, I get a cookie. Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is, I haven't confirmed this, but I will say from my perspective, being a well-read reader, I would call this a YA mystery. So, in this book, we are following a girl whose name is Avery. She is a high schooler and she is struggling financially. She comes from a poorer background, I guess. And one day, an announcement is made that she has come into a whole lot of money. A billionaire, not millionaire, a billionaire has died and left the majority of his fortune to her. So the question becomes, why did he do this, especially considering she doesn't even know him? And a mystery ensues. Now, personal thoughts on this book is that I was disappointed, but let me tell you why, because I don't want you to think, oh, this is a horrible book and I shouldn't read it. I think that this book will appeal to a YA audience who is looking for a mystery and that goes in with no assumptions, because I did, and that was my downfall. I go into each and every single book that I read. There is not one, well, except for the next book I'm going to talk about, but we'll get to that. Aside from the second book I read this week, I go into every other book blind. I don't want to know what is coming up. I want to be surprised. So, all I knew about this book was that it was a mystery, and I saw the title and went, oh, okay, it is a book called The Inheritance Games, so therefore it is going to be a competition revolving around games where the winner will claim an inheritance. Boy, was I wrong. As I already said in the premise, we follow Avery, who comes into money, and then the mystery begins. So my idea of what these games would be was completely wrong, and I was made well aware of that within the first couple of chapters. So that kind of got to me, and the more I read the book, the more it was just getting to me. I wish I could have just let go of my assumptions and enjoyed it for what it was, but I just couldn't, because I was looking for, well, I was anxiously anticipating reading a book about games being played to inherit money, and it's not what I got. So that did let me down. But looking at it objectively, I still do think it's a good book. I think that Jennifer Lynn Barnes writes with a very easy to read writing style. I think that the mystery itself is incredibly intriguing for anyone who does not go in assuming anything like I did. So if you go in with a clean slate, if you go in knowing that Avery has the money before anything begins, and that the mystery is that she's trying to work out why she's got the money and not that the mystery is playing games in order to get the money, then I think you might enjoy the book. Having said that, I went into this book, and most books, blind. I went in search of the book that I wanted. What I wanted, you all, was a book that was either a mystery or a thriller or a horror that had some sort of a game aspect to it. So I then came across a premise for a book, and I tell you what, that premise made me go, yes, that is what I wanted with this book. And so I took a book off of my TBR so I could read that book where the premise that I read was exactly what I wanted. Now, what I was going to read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. I will try and read it at some point. I have a very full TBR for the majority of the rest of the year, but I've heard a lot about Emily Henry and I'd love to know where I stand on her work, so I will pick up one of her books at some point soon, but I removed it for this book, which is... Okay, there's a camera on this book, and the camera has a bit of blood on it, so if that's something that might freak you out a little bit, just turn away quickly, but otherwise you should be okay to look at it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. This book, which is The Housemates by Ian Rob Wright. It actually doesn't look that offensive if I hold it this far back, so that's a good thing. Okay, this is an adult horror. Now, imagine a combination of Saw, the Saw movies, and Big Brother playing out in a horror book that is an adult horror. This book, this one, yeah, I said 3 stars. This one, I gave an overwhelming 5 stars to, for so many reasons. I don't know where to begin, but definitely check out my Goodreads review for this one because I went into major detail. I'm going to put the book down so that I can talk to you, and anyone who's freaked out by the book, we can deal with that and I can just talk to you about my thoughts and feelings because I have so many, and I have not come across a review on BookTube for this book, and there needs to be a review, but I've stopped doing single book reviews. So here we go. A lot of the time is going to be taken up with me talking about this because it needs to be said. Okay, looking at this book, The Housemates by Ian Rob Wright, from an objective perspective, it deserves 5 stars. Looking at the book from a subjective perspective, it deserves 5 stars. Hence why, from me, it gets an overwhelming 5 stars. What you need to remember going into this book is that you're going into an adult horror. Now, what is the purpose of a horror? Well, honestly, that is a subject that I could unpack and take an hour in doing so. But to summarize, everyone's perspective on what a horror should be does differ. I spoke to Sean Horton a couple of years ago after reading an amazing horror called Cenote. I highly recommend checking it out. And I was complimenting him on writing to me what was the perfect horror, and I went on to describe what I thought that was. And Mr. Horton came back to me and said to me, everyone's perspective on horror is different. But he was also saying that he appreciated how much I love the book. And he's right. Everyone has a different perspective of what a certain genre should be about. So this is just my own interpretation. Tell me if you agree or disagree. In my opinion, a horror at its most basic level should do one of the following, if not all of them. Gross you out, freak you out, make you want to leave the light on, and convince you that you are going to have a nightmare. If a horror succeeds in doing any one of those 4, then, to me, it is a horror. If a horror succeeds in doing all of those 4, then it deserves a high rating because it fit the brief of what a horror is. Now, then we need to unpack age ratings. A middle grade horror is not necessarily going to freak out or gross out, although it can, an adult, for example. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, an adult horror, you need to go into expecting the worst of the worst because it's an adult horror, and so there is no line that the author cannot cross. I was fully prepared for this going in. But still, Ian Rob Wright managed to tick all of those boxes. The only box that Ian Rob Wright did not tick for me was convince me that I need to leave the light on, because I read his book during the day, and so therefore enough things had transpired. I read it over the course of 2 days. Enough things had transpired over the course of both days after I'd read it that by the time I went to bed, I wasn't thinking about all the gory, horrific, gruesome, freaked out scenes. But had I read it as the last thing I read before I went to bed, yeah, I absolutely would have left the light on. So he ticked all of those boxes for me objectively. Subjectively, it was fantastic. Again, because it is a cross between Saw and Big Brother, it is a test on human nature. So the premise of the book is that we have 12 people in a house, and they are convinced that they have come there to take part in a Big Brother style game, and the winner is going to walk away with £2 million. They are told from the outset, the moment they arrive in the house, that it's going to end, the game will end one of two ways. And that is that one person will walk away with $2 million, or if the final two prefer, they can have two winners and they'll split the prize money and have £1 million each. So, sounds great. Everyone seems to have a reason as to why they want to be there, whether it is fame or the money because it's going to help them do whatever it is. And then we get to the point where we have our first challenge. Now, I don't want to go into the premise of Big Brother, so I'll just say for the sake of this book, every single day someone is eliminated, and every single day there are two challenges that take place. The first one is basically for immunity. If you or your team that you're on win the first challenge, you are safe from the vote that night. So that's the first challenge. Then the second challenge is the two people who receive the most votes, who are eligible to receive those votes, go into an elimination competition. But because this is a horror, the challenges are incredibly horrific. Now, I'm not going to go into detail as to what the challenges are because they are incredibly horrific. Objectively, as I said, this book deserves 5 stars because Ian Rob Wright wrote a horror and did everything that he should do when writing a horror. But I just don't think that this is the place to be graphically spelling out to you what happened in these games. If this book appeals to you, pick it up. If not, I'll spare you that torment. But what I will say is that the housemates come to learn very early on that the challenges are not going to be simple, fun challenges, and in fact that they are fighting to the death. So each elimination challenge is a death trap, basically. 2 people will enter into the arena, only one is going to make it out alive and continue on, the other will be eliminated because they die. So, now that you're aware of that, that is the premise. And so the house guests learn this from the moment they do the first elimination challenge, that this is not what they thought it was going to be. It's not going to be a fun journey at all. And we progress through the story. I thought that it was fantastic. It was the basic plot of the book was exactly what I wanted. Did I want it to be as extremely horrific as it was? No. No, there were some scenes that even I struggled with. And I mean, that's saying a lot because I've never in my life struggled reading a horror. Watching them is a different story. But Ian Rob Wright is incredibly descriptive, and there were times when I was like, that's a bit much for me. But the overall plot was fantastic. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you that helped me to really like the book as well is that we find out after the first elimination has happened, I won't tell you who's eliminated, but after the first person has died and they're eliminated, a video is played on one of the screens they have in the house showing why this person was put into the house. And what the housemates end up realizing is that everyone in the house is someone who has done something horrifically life-changing to someone else. So in their victim's mind, they deserve to be in this house. So it's not like 12 strangers were randomly plucked out of thin air. These people were put here for a reason, and that reason is to enact revenge. Okay, I love the book overall. I thought Ian Rob Wright did an amazing job. I reached out to him to tell him so. He responded to me within 12 hours saying how thankful he was that I did, and he's pointed me in the direction of another one of his books that I should look at, which I really appreciated. He did not come across as preachy or like he was advertising himself. He was more just saying, because he's written a lot of books, so he was more just saying, if you like that one, I recommend trying this one because it's kind of similar. So yeah, I definitely will continue on my journey with Ian Rob Wright because I loved this book. Now, this book is book number 4 in a series called The Damien Verse, but it reads like a standalone. So I didn't read the first 3. You definitely don't need to. There's nothing that I feel I missed. And any type of a backstory we need to know about the protagonist, we learn that throughout the book anyway. So totally fine. But yeah, an overwhelming 5 stars from me. Alright, let's move on to the third and final book that I read this week, and this is a book that I just finished. I don't have it on me, but it is on the way, and that is this book, Restaurant Weeks Are Murder by Libby Klein. This is part of the Poppy Mcallister mystery series. I read book number 1, Class Reunions Are Murder, and gave it 3 stars, and book number 2, Midnight Snacks Are Murder, and I don't know what I gave, but I think it was like a 4 or something. So yeah, I was excited to get to this one. My progression with this series has done nothing but seen escalating results from me, because book 1 got 3 stars, book 2 got 4 stars, book 3, Restaurant Weeks of Murder, I gave 5 stars to. And this is what I love about giving authors a second chance, because it is one thing if you do something that I'm not a fan of in book 1, and then I give you a chance with book 2 and you let me down. It is another thing if you improve in book 2 from what you did in book 1, and then you improve again with book 3 to what you did with book 2. And that's what Libby Klein has done for me. Look, there was a moment that occurred at the end of this third book, after we had solved the mystery and all that, in the aftermath of everything that occurred, that reminded me of book 1, and I did not like that. I will say, but it was not enough for me to want to relegate this down any lower than 5 stars. So the premise of this book is that Poppy, who is our protagonist in this series, has decided to assist a chef who has entered into a competition, which is a week-long cooking competition for chefs in restaurants, and the winner will receive accolades and publicity and, of course, prize money. So we open up basically the beginning of this competition, and for the majority of the book, that's exactly where we are. We're dealing with the competition. So that worked really well for me. Is the Poppy Mcallister series a culinary series? Absolutely not, in my opinion. No, not at all. But this book was a culinary cozy within the mystery and within the series, and so I appreciated that. They realize that someone has been stuffing around with the ingredients and mislabeling them, and that has happened to everyone. We then find out that other things have gone askew, certain things aren't working, certain things are working too much or whatever, so someone's behind all that. But there is a murder. And the murder that takes place is one of the judges. They end up dying, and so we have to try and solve the murder and find out who murdered the judge. And yeah, everyone's a suspect because this judge was not giving the nicest critiques, let's put it that way. Now, one thing that I struggle with Libby Klein and this series with the first book, Class Reunions Are Murder, is that it took until about halfway through the book until the murder actually took place. I have grown to appreciate this about Libby Klein because it has been a consistent thing so far, and I feel like that will continue on because I have started to realize that when it comes to cozy mysteries, I am someone who prefers a more cozy leaning cozy mystery. I actually liked the fact and have grown to appreciate the fact that it does take so long for that to happen. In saying that, I've also noticed that Libby Klein kind of sets us up with 2 mysteries in each of her books. And the first one seems to be a non-murder mystery, and then the second one is the murder. So I appreciate that too. But by taking as much time as Libby Klein does to introduce the murder in the plot, she allows us to learn a lot more about the characters and to gain a lot more information as far as the cozy side is concerned. And I just, really appreciated that. I appreciated that it was the judge that was killed, and the mystery that ensued was fantastic. Poppy Mcallister is an ace sleuth, so, got to give her props for that. The reveal, which is usually make or break for me when it comes to a cozy mystery, was so good. Oh my goodness. So there's not a lot I can say about the reveal, which is kind of like I want to say so much. But what I will say is this. When we first get the reveal, or when I first read the reveal, I didn't know who the person was. And then a little bit later on, as I continued to read, I realized who it was. And that had me incredibly happy, because I've been let down by so many reveals when it comes to cozies, but not this one. I did not guess who the murderer was, but that didn't mean that it wasn't an enticing mystery and an amazing reveal. So I'm giving this book 5 stars. I thought it was so well done, and I think I underestimated Libby Klein with the first book that I read, with Class Reunions Are Murder, because I'm just growing to love the Poppy Mcallister mystery series the more I'm reading it. So I can't wait to get on to book number 4, which I'll be doing next month. But that is it. Those are the 3 books that I read in the first week of August. What did you read in the first week of August? Let me know in the comments section below. But in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah. Please do be kind and love one another, and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.